bear with us. But thank you guys for coming. I think this is the actually only Web3 based panel at Brand Innovators this year. So yeah, it is an extremely exciting space, and my company, SmartMedia Technologies, as well as the rest of these gentlemen, have invested our careers into seeing the potentials of this technology and taking it to the next level. As we sit today, it's still extremely nascent. So what I'm going to do is ask these gentlemen to first start us off by defining what Web3 means to their companies, and then talk a little bit about what role they do within those. So let's start with names, your role, how you define Web3 within the company, and what you guys do within the space.
I'm Wilson Standish. I head up content and creativity at Hearts and Science, and then for OMG, I lead our Web3 practice. And so for us, we really see the metaverse and Web3 as two concurrent iterations of the internet, and Web3 specifically being a decentralized data and audience approach to loyalty, to value exchange, to proof of purchase, proof of attendance, and all those things. And I think we're just kind of figuring out just the start of the use case utility.
Excellent.
I'm Dan Schmerin. I'm a co-founder of Metaversal. There's two parts to Metaversal. One is acquiring and producing evocative IP, so a new generation of intellectual property and content, a lot of which is generated by users and consumers, as opposed to just brand builders and content creators somewhere in a back room. And the other part is an investment arm, where we are backing leading NFT projects and NFT infrastructure. And it's the synergy between those two things that gives us an edge, because we get to see where the puck is heading, what the audience is really coalescing around. And so we can invest in that space and then look to build and support projects that are there. For us, Web3 is really about giving power back to the people. So Web2 is all about big tech companies owning all of us. They know exactly where we go, our spending habits. They have a whole digital persona about you, and you don't own it and you don't control any of it. And sometimes you deselect on your iPhone, but yet they still have all that information. And to us, Web3 is about us taking back control and ownership over lots of that, so that you can monetize the information about you, and more importantly, you can begin to have micro-personalization. He mentions loyalty. There's nothing about my experience with American Airlines yesterday coming here that was personal. Yeah. You're a number assigned to a seat, and it doesn't matter your status or tier. That's going to change coming forward, and we should talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, sorry, you hit on a couple key concepts that I think we'll circle back to, specifically around owning data as a consumer and a profile. But let's hear from Sebastian.
Hi, everybody. My name's Sebastian Oddo. I am the director of Web3, NFTs, and blockchain at Mastercard. Prior to being at Mastercard, I worked for Gary Vaynerchuk at Vayner3 for a year, launching some major brands into the Web3 space. At Mastercard, we believe that technology has the ability to create a place for everyone. And we really think about three things. One, about listening to the community, about learning new things that we might not know. And then the third is around being curious and really thinking about where we could be authentic in our launches when we think about Web3.
Great, thank you. And just for introductions, Michael Chock, I'm the Chief Solutions Officer at SmartMedia Technology. We define Web3 very much as similar to these gentlemen, as a decentralized place, and actually now as a new media channel for engagement. So I could not agree more with what Dan said here about how do we actually now have a new channel that is not built by the monopolies or the duopolies of the massive tech giants, but is actually a grassroots movements coming from personalization and coming from individual consumers wanting to take back that power. So it's a very exciting time, and it's a really, really great place to be. So as we look into this space, I'm just going to ask you gentlemen if you can tell me what you think, looking last year, were some of the most successful engagements you saw within the Web3 space, and why those were successful. It can be from your companies, or it can be from other places you saw generally in the marketplace.
Sure, I'll start. I think one of the ones that I really liked was actually what Reddit did and launching their NFT program. I think that one of the big pushbacks we get when we talk about NFT with our clients or we talk about Web3, they always ask, well, what's the scale? What's the scale? And there's about 4 million Americans that have purchased NFTs, and that's not enough scale. But I think what Reddit did that was so smart is they made it so that you didn't really need to know about Web3. You didn't really need to know, you didn't need to have a digital wallet at that time. You could create a digital wallet through them, collect NFTs. The price point was accessible, and there was a lot of fun and collectability that added a lot of personality to that community that's already a pretty ravenous one. And I think what I like about it so much as well is the flexibility it gave the user, so they could easily take the keys from that wallet, put it somewhere else, and could stay with them and have real lasting power. So I think that their ability to onboard and bring people into Web3 was a huge success, and that's what we're all going to need to do. But then also the interoperability was really impressive and simple. And I think that's going to be a key. It's like, how can we make this easier?
We invested in 228 different NFT projects last year, so it's hard to pick precisely your baby. I would say what FX Hash was doing on the Tezos blockchain for generative art was something that we were very passionate about. And we're very early to that. We love the fact that all of these digital artists were now becoming accessible at price points that were much, much lower than what you had seen with art blocks on the Ethereum blockchain. And it spoke to this idea of how do you begin to build a broader community that's more accessible, not just to the crypto bros that were transferring their profits out of crypto into NFTs because they thought that's the next big thing to profit from, but really how do you begin supporting the next generation of artists? So I would point to the generative art movement as a big success. And then there were individual projects like Exosama, where it was on a Polkadot chain. It was not as well known for that reason. And we had a unique opportunity to partner with the founders of it and begin to help them on this journey to shift and expand onto the ETH blockchain as well. So there's something for everyone. But I think he touched on an important point, which is meeting the audience where they are. I always say to our team, how are you going to get my older brother engaged? Because he's a skeptic, and he's often angry. And he is in commercial real estate, so he deals with hard assets and stuff he can touch. And this is amorphous. And so every dinner we go to, he's like, I don't want to hear about a punk or an ape. I want something tangible, which means we have to speak his language. And his language is about loyalty and membership and access and exclusivity, things he already does, sports teams that he follows, trips that he goes on, restaurants that he likes to frequent. How do you begin to engage in making those activities more seamless, more personalized? And Starbucks, to some extent, is doing that. There's 30 plus million Starbucks members. Most of them don't know that there's going to be NFTs built into the rewards program. We do, and that's a harbinger of things to come. There's a long list of brands now, Mastercard being one, Nike with Artifact being another. So depending on your areas of interest, there's going to be something that speaks to you. And we're all collectors. That's the truth.
So I agree about Reddit. I actually helped them write a book, a playbook called The ABCs of NFTs. So if you're looking to get into NFTs, look that up online, ABCs of NFTs. Reddit did an excellent they really made sure that the community understood what they were getting into, and that playbook really helps that come to life. In terms of Mastercard, Mastercard built last year an experience in Decentraland for Pride Month around being your true self, and that really meant a lot to me because it allowed people to go into the metaverse and really truly they might not be able to be their true self at work or be their true self at home because of, for whatever reason, but within the metaverse, they were able to create their own avatars and dance and be that person that they could truly be. And I really, that was before I was at Mastercard, but from a distance, I thought that was a really beautiful thing that they put together. So that was, if you want to look that up, that was their Pride activation around Decentraland. So,
awesome. And I actually want to double click into that with you, Sebastian, to talk about this kind of next big evolution, because something that we've all talked a little bit about is the scale. How do we get our older brothers? How do we get our parents into this next technology? And there's a continual discussion that a lot of brands are having of, do we build something and they will come? or do we need, as the innovators and the technologists, to actually build a bridge? So I'd love to hear your thoughts on, is it build them and they will come, or do we need to actually facilitate a more easy user experience?
Yeah, so one, being in crypto for a while, I think there's this sentiment that like you can't use your credit card because it's not cool. Like we got to get past that. We have to be able to use our debit cards and our credit cards to be able to make purchases. That's the only way, because for myself, it's difficult purchasing things with crypto, but for my mom and my uncles and everybody else that wants to get involved, we have to open it up. So that's how we onboard millions and millions of people globally, is we allow that to happen. The second is around being inclusive, creating inclusive environments. It can't be a bros club. It has to be open to to people of all different types of backgrounds. So we have to sing that song, and it can't just be during during a period of time. It needs to be forever. We're creating the foundation of Web3 now. Now's our chance to get this shit right. And if we don't get it right, then we're going to fall back into old sort of methods. So that's sort of where I'm at.
Great. And Dan, double-clicking on a little bit of what you said here about 228 investments, what are you looking for when you're looking to make these investments? Like, what are the telltale signs of this is going to be a successful project? Because I think last year at NFT NYC, there were about 700 vendors there. And we've seen that number skyrocket and continually fall. So how are you choosing success?
It all starts around community and community engagement. We look for a series of parameters, and we're always coming back to how robust and active is this community when people aren't watching. So look past the pump, look past their promos. Are you actually seeing signs that there's individuals who are genuinely interested in this niche? And that's why I say everyone's a collector of something. When I was young, I collected Matchbox cars and stamps. My brother collected baseball cards. And in the recent flurry over the last 2 years, he's furiously digging through our parents' basement to find the baseball cards because he thinks they're worth something. He doesn't know that Upper Deck and Topps were mass producing in the 80s, and so they're actually worthless. But he'll figure that out soon. So it all comes down for us to community, and then we have a checklist, some of which ties to traditional investment parameters, and some of which are variations on those themes. So, I think it's important to establish, just because we're talking about Web3 and NFTs in the metaverse doesn't mean you abandon everything we've learned. Knowledge is supposed to be cumulative, so let's build on what worked in the past. If it's a project that's going to be generating cash flows, all of a sudden, we shouldn't say cash flow doesn't matter anymore. We think it does. And what you're seeing in 2023 is that you're not ascribing significant value to the one-hit wonder. Great, you were able to do a project once that attracted a community, but did it then fall off a cliff? That's what I mean by sustained community engagement. I don't think it has to be more complicated than that.
That's great. And I think, Wilson, you sit in a really unique standpoint because you're kind of the point of innovation for a lot of the brands that come to the holding company. So when these brands are coming to you, how are you describing Web3 as a media channel or as part of what should be their strategy for consumer engagement?
Yeah, I think the way we kind of look at it is, in the future, Web3 will be kind of a mandatory part of DTC strategies. It'll be like if you were leaving email off your DTC strategy, and so there's a long-term vision, but a lot of them are like, well, what about it right now? And so a lot of the goal is identifying and kind of mining what's the value now, and can it be a cost-effective way to acquire first-party data? Is it a new way to engage? Is it a way to bring in community? And I think a key to, so that is a lot of what we're working on, and it's different for every brand, depending on what their DTC strategy is. I think every brand needs kind of that direct-to-consumer strategy now in some facet, maybe not a traditional one. But I think the challenge to it, and kind of to your earlier question, I think what we're working on the most is like, what is the value to the consumer? And if we just think about what we want, the data we want, the form of engagement we want, it'll never be successful. So it's identifying, Is it the digital collectability angle that's going to motivate people? Is it a value exchange in terms of a discount? Is it access to a community, access to an event, input on their favorite show? I think identifying the right value is what we spend a lot of the time talking about, and so not just doing NFTs for NFT's sake, but really thinking about the utility that can bring value to the brand in the right way and value to the consumer, so they'll even want to engage with them in that way.
Yeah, I think that's the key piece. And Dan, this harkens back to what you were saying earlier about this change in paradigm of the tech companies owning that persona. I'd love it if you guys have any thoughts on what does this look like as we're so used to the worlds of the Googles and the Amazons and the Facebooks or Metas owning all of that consumer data, what it looks like as we shift that paradigm to it being consumer driven and really coming from, hey, I'm going to choose how my data is being monetized, and if I'm not even at least I'm partaking in that. And so any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's fun. I think it's exciting I always tell everyone at work, bring your own wallet, right? Like we're going to bring our own wallet to a website like Williams-Sonoma, or we're going to bring our own wallet to Time. Right now, I could bring my digital wallet to time.com, and it unlocks all of the content because they know I'm an NFT holder. I don't have to fumble through coupon codes. I don't have to fumble through emails. I don't have to fumble through plastic cards in my pocket. I could find immediately my NFT in my wallet, connect it to the site, and now I have access to all of the content. That's incredible. And that's what I'm excited about is giving that sort of opportunity to millions of people. So
taking off the concept that you were taking, and Wilson, this question is for you, is as we look at kind of a Web 1 world, we trusted a password and a username to verify and authenticate a consumer. In a Web 2 world, we really trusted the Googles and the Facebook to log in with my Facebook, log in with my Google. In Web 3, I truly believe it's going to be looking at the wallet as the identity verification that is private, that is using there. But that plays an even larger role in marketing. So how do you think the wallet's going to partake in this soon-to-be cookieless world and identity graphs?
Yeah, it will. Right now we can see it as the home of your identity, and like especially from a measurement standpoint, it provides the most insight for us as marketers. I think we don't even fully understand how big of a role the wallet will play. If we look at email and how originally we thought email was just going to be just for that electronic mail that is sent. I don't think in the early 90s, people were saying, oh yeah, I'll use my email address to access all my investments, my bank account, my insurance, all these things. So I think that the wallet will be key, and I don't even think we fully understand the extent that that's going to go. And so how brands can invest now in understanding how do you measure, what does success look like, how do you measure identity within a wallet, what is the role of the wallet with your organization, will be key in figuring out in the near future.
And I'll just pick up on that. Again, if we go back to traditional wallets, what does it say if I have a very slim, clean wallet, only 4 cards and some currency in that, versus my partner who has the George Costanza wallet, right, and sits on an angle, and he's got his entire life and every coupon, some new, some expired, stuck in there. It actually gives you an image of the individual's personality. So this idea that a digital wallet is going to give us great insight is a variation on an existing theme, but it's going to be much, much more powerful because you have deep ideas around what is actually resonant with that person and what speaks to them. Why do I belong to certain communities and not others? Yeah. And then what value are you going to offer me to come and join yours?
And I think beyond that, it's also going to be the aspect of choice, so that a user will be able to publicize which tokens within their wallets they want to be used for marketing, for information gathering, so that it very truly becomes the next step of marketing and saying, hey, I have a lot of rare wine NFTs in my wallet. That's something I'm interested in. If there are other offers of that, please bring that to me. And then, Sebastian, one of the things that I wanted to talk about is this idea of loyalty and community. And looking at Starbucks is probably the most notable large brand right now that has replaced their loyalty program with, to Dan's point, NFTs that most people don't. How is a brand like Mastercard thinking about using Web3 strategies in loyalty?
Yeah, so the first thing we need to do is listen to our clients and their customers of what loyalty means to them, what's working and what's not working. From there, we could build truly authentic programs for our clients and for ourselves. When you think about Priceless.com, like the loyalty for our cardholders to go into Priceless.com and get an exclusive experience where you can go behind the scenes at Yankee Stadium, like what does that mean as an NFT? What does that mean? So I think first is listening. I'll go back to what I said before, listening, and also making sure that not only listen to our clients, but we're listening to the community. What does the community want so that we could grow and be better at what we're doing in marketing?
Great. Well, we're getting that little red light, but I think we have time for questions. So if there are any questions for any of our esteemed panelists.
Question. You have this really broad view of so many clients across so many categories in the OMG portfolio. What are the categories that are the early adopters and who are kind of the laggards? And how do you convince the laggards that this isn't just the next shiny object? What are the things you do as an agency guy to really convince them and teach them that this is something that really needs to pay attention to?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the people that moved early were the clients that are they want to affect culture and they're part of culture. So PepsiCo has done a lot in terms of metaverse, proof of attendance, NFTs, and State Farm as well. Again, I think the ones that wanted to be as part of culture were the early ones, and they weren't as concerned about the measurement or the ROI. They just knew this is a culture moving place and we need to be there. But what came from it was, I think, a surprise about, I don't think a CPG company realized that NFTs could enable them to have a direct-to-consumer strategy and approach that maybe wasn't even the goal originally, but they realized the data that comes back, the ability to have personalization engagements was really driving that. For the people that aren't necessarily first movers, I think it's about, for us, proving that it can be a cost-effective thing to move things now. How can you acquire email address? How can you use it to drive app downloads? How can you do all these other things that you want to do now? And so trying to prove that, as well as educating around the growing gap that's building between Web 2 identities and Web 3 identities, and we need to find a nexus to connect those as Web 3 scales. Right now, it's not a huge issue, but as Web 3 scales, it becomes a big data desert, and we understand less and less about our audiences as they spend more time there. So I think it's education, immediate goals, but having a vision for the long term, and making sure that they understand that this is not going anywhere, and removing it from like a speculative asset and being a real utility.
Question for the panel. In the explosion of Web3 conversation and excitement, a lot of fledgling media companies popped up. A lot of them are now weathering a downturn. What advice would any of you give to Web3 devoted media companies that are long-term believers in the space but have to get through this difficult period?
I'll jump in on this one. And to me, it's about focusing on utility rather than speculation. And I think the areas that we saw a lot of that spike and fall were in places that purely focused on the speculative nature of value of NFTs rather than focusing on the long-term utility that really brings the technology to bear. And when we start saying, hey, how do we actually create a lifetime loyalty program that can be bequeathed to your kids in your will? Like, those are the kind of programs that are going to show the true value of the technology, truly being decentralized and having a very long perseverance. I think we have time for
I'd also say being open to strategic partnerships and being very honest and candid about capabilities, like what they're good at and what they're not good at, because we get bombarded daily by Web 2 businesses that pronounce themselves Web 3 experts, and it takes us 13 minutes to realize they don't know anything. It's not just the United States, it's all over the world. And that doesn't win friends and influence others, because we all talk. So being clear about this is our special sauce, and this is where we have great capability. We have lots of needs, and there's many folks that look like us. So being able to find those strategic partnerships is important.
Great. We have time for one more. All right. Well, thank you guys all very much for attending, and on to the next.